Now we're going to have a quick look at blade lengths and thicknesses. This is just a general guide, and I know things are debatable and so forth. For the number one tool, the machete, around 10 inches or 10 inches minimum, and it can be longer. Now the M1 machete that I show you in previous videos, that heavy duty machete out there on the farm, that's a 10-inch blade. The heavier one still, that weighed around 750 grams, was 10 inches as well. I found a 10-inch blade to be enough to do heavy chopping work. It can be longer. Now let's compare that to, for example, the cold steel cookery machete, 13 inches long, around 450 grams, 2.8 millimeters thick. So this machete at 500 grams, which goes from around 6 millimeters down to 3 millimeters, so it's thicker, heavier but shorter, a bit more kick-ass in my mind. If you get too long, it might be too thin and too light, so keep that in mind as well. So 10 inches was fine, can be longer, and the thicknesses, like I said, if you can go down from 1/4 of an inch, maybe down to 1/8 of an inch at the very tip, is okay. If you 1/4 of an inch all the way through, heavier, but more sturdier and better. Maybe you can be 3/16 up there as well, but that's a general sort of thickness which matches that M1 machete, which was just fine as a heavy duty machete. The main working knife, tool number 3, around 5 to 6 inches. I've always said in previous videos, around 6 inches is fine, especially teamed up with a heavy duty machete or an axe. I have relented lately and said, okay, I've come down below 6 inches to 5 to 6 inches. The reason for that, an example is the blind horse knives, sorts of knives, like the Pathfinder brand. I believe is around a 5 1/4 inch blade, but it's nice and thick, 5/32 inches. You want to be 5/32 at least. That's going to be a nice thick blade for batoning and so forth. And of course for the main working knife, that happens to be my 7-inch version. So if you went to 7 inches, I wouldn't have a major problem, but around 6 inches is fine, but a bit shorter than 6 inches for a thick blade can also suffice. The number 3A chopping tool, around 8 to 9 inches. This example I show you is 9 inches long, and again a similar thickness. It could be thicker, but that's 5/32 as well for short-term emergency chopping, and that's all I'm talking about for the chopping tool, is really a one-off emergency short-term, maybe building a shelter for example for a bit of chopping power. So that should be thick enough, 5/32, but again if it's a bit thicker, that's just a bonus. Your smaller working knife, 4 to 5 inch length range is fine. This example, my smaller working knife, 4 1/4 inch, and the thicknesses, I've got 3/32 inches thick, around 2.3 or 2.5 millimeters. That's what that is. It can be thicker. Now I've got 1/8 of an inch here because there are some more kick-ass blades that are 1/8 of an inch. That's fine. The thickest and longest Mora knife is 4 1/4 inch, but 1/8 of an inch. So that length blade, but 1/8 of an inch thicker. That's fine. But don't get too hung up about blade lengths and thicknesses, because this one here, 2.3 millimeters thick, I mean, boy, that's going to do 99% of the work out there, but it can be thicker. The camp knife, 3 to 4 inch length range should be fine. And again, thickness, 2 millimeters, 3/32, 2.3. I don't think you want to be much thicker than that. You want a really nice sharp 3 to 4 inch blade for all that sort of light work, carving, skinning and so forth. But you can be thinner. You've got the option, like I've said in a previous video talking about camp knives, the cheaper kitchen style knives. It's cheap kitchen knives, thinner blades but nice and sharp, can do many jobs around camp, cooking, preparing game, meat, slicing meat, all that sort of stuff. So around that thickness, 2 millimeters, 2.3, maybe not thicker, but it could be thinner. And your folding knives, your multi-tool, you're not going to get much shorter than 1.5. That's a small folding knife you get in the Altoids Tin Survival Kit, up to 3.5 inch. Now, at first I had 3 inches there, but 3.5 inches is going to pick up your more kick-ass folding knives, like for example, a cold steel Finn Wolf knife, 3.5 inch blade with 1/8 of an inch thickness, kick-ass folding knife. You can see how there's overlap there to the camp knife, I'm thinking 3 to 4 inch is fine. 3.5 inch picks up your kick-ass longer, bigger folding knives, but 3 to 4 inch for a camp knife. Fixed blade, don't forget. Fixed blade knives are always going to be thicker and sturdier than folding knives, so keep that in mind. Another thing to look at here is you can get longer folding knives. For example, perhaps Utica brand, this Trap-In series of knives might be 4 inch, 4.5 inch into the camp knife category, but they're still folding knives and the fixed blades are always going to be sturdier and stronger. And the other main example which I've spoken about is your Mora knives. Great in the camp knife category, it's a good example. The largest Mora knife might be in the smaller working knife range. The largest Mora knife is 4.25 inch at 1/8 of an inch. They've got 3 thicknesses for blades. Their thickest is 1/8 of an inch, so that's a smaller working knife category. But again, 2.3 millimeters for that, that's going to do 99% of your work out there. A quick look at blade lengths and thicknesses, and we'll see you for the next video.